Hello and welcome to DekuDabiHawks Podfix. This is Hephaestus, chapters 11 to 14, read by DekuDabiHawks and written by Electric_RK. Chapter 11. Enter the Inferno. Summary. What happens with the group as they reach the city of Hosu? The trip towards Hosu felt like it was taking forever to Katsuki. He was itching to get into the action and save as many people as he could. Looking to his side and across from him as they traveled on the train, Shoto and Hitoshi felt the same. They must have been reaching the city below. He was continually finding himself glancing out the window to check their progress. A Nomu chasing through the side of the train gave him all the answers he needed to where they were. Through the hole in the side of the train, there was fire and smoke taking over the streets. Izuku had attacked the Nomu as soon as he saw it entering the train.
Vulcan, Okami, and Hypnosis, go with Prometheus now. Try to provide as much support as possible to the heroes already on the ground.
His brother shouted before he was blasting the Nomu out of the hole and blasting off after it.
You have my permission to use your quirks. Do not try to fight the hero killer if you find him.
Toya's tone left no room for arguing with him. Getting down to the street really let them know how dire the situation was. Hawks was flying over the battle using his feathers to pull civilians away from danger. Manuel was there, but the detail Katsuki was paying attention to was that he was here alone. He couldn't sit around and wait here while his classmate was potentially dying at the hands of the hero killer. He was sure the heroes here could handle it. Shoto's ice helping the fires and Toya's flames were charring the Nomu with little stopping them. Running off through the alleyways to try and find the other boy was being found to be more difficult than he expected, until he heard the sound of fighting in a nearby alley. Katsuki wasn't going to waste time trying to find his way through the maze of turns. He propelled himself up onto the roof in time to see a man with swords walking towards a downed Ida and native. There was no way that either of them were dying while he is here. Prometheus had given him permission to use his quirk too. Dropping down behind the man, he aimed to let off a weaker explosion just to stun the man as he got Ida and native out of the way. No harm needed to come to those two tonight. Stain turning around hadn't been planned for.
You've come to save this fake?
This hero that came after me in revenge instead of to stop me hurting people? Stain snarled in his direction, the malice that he excluded causing the hair on his arms to stand up on end.
He'll still make a great hero one day. So come at me, you fucker.
Katsuki was prepared. Not enough, apparently. The speed that Stain moved with surprised him. The sword blades digging into the armored sections of his hero costume. He would need to get some backup. Shoto and Hitoshi would be perfect to aid him here. The separation was needed between them to send a text to the GC all of them had made together. It took no time at all for both teams to show up. Stain wasn't about to go down without a fight. He kicked Katsuki hard in the ribs, a couple undoubtedly cracking as he hit side first into the wall. Stain was doing well to not have been struck by Shoto's flames. Yet Stain was doing well to not have been struck by Shoto's flames yet either, dancing around them. Shoto hadn't anticipated the knife that was thrown back in his direction, cutting his cheek open and hitting Hitoshi in the chest. That was bad. Really bad. They were all beaten up and faring poorly in the fight against the experienced vigilante. Shoto and Hitoshi grunted suddenly, immobilized. That must be part of what Stain's quirk let him do. Stain was taking major advantage over his inability to fight harshly in order to protect the injured bodies around him. He was sure he was about to die as the blade of a sword was aimed towards his throat. Nothing happened. Katsuki opened his eyes to see Hawk standing in front of him. Blue flames came funneling down the alley, striking Stain. Hawks took the given distraction to wrap his arms around Katsuki, launching them out of the alley, going back to help the others out as Toya fought against Stain. Katsuki did feel a smirk forming as he started hearing explosions join in with the sound of Toya's flames. Izuku was in the fight, and the hero killer stood no chance against Prometheus and Hephaestus as a team. Both heroes appeared out of the alley soon after carrying the unconscious body of the hero killer. Katsuki adrenaline was dropping fast. His eyes felt like they were drooping shut. Next thing he knew, his feet were off the ground and he was flying through the air, sharp claws tearing into his suit and the muscles underneath. Katsuki! That was Izuku's voice. As quick as he'd been flying, he was suddenly in someone's arms, being lowered back to the ground. It very clearly wasn't Izuku, since his brother was a lot bigger than the man holding him. Toya was also bigger. So maybe it was Hawks? It seemed like Icarus, as Izuku had referred to him as, was starting to work his way into that relationship. Hephaestus, Prometheus, and Hawks would make a power trio if Katsuki had ever seen one. The relief in Izuku's voice made his heart soar. His brother would do anything to protect him. To protect anyone, really, but Izuku would get out of his way to make sure that him, their parents, and his friends were safe. He also had his students now, which along with Toya were in very capable hands. There were more Nomu heading up the street towards the group now. Katsuki could see Izuku and Toya stepping up to the front of the group. He really wanted to take a nap right now, but he couldn't miss this. His legs were trying to take him closer. Stay right here, Vulcan. You don't need to enter the Fernal once it starts. The street was alight with blue and orange flames, working so seamlessly together to burn all the Nomu to nothing but cinders. That was the power of two gods in Katsuki's eyes. If he was a villain, then he would be making sure he did everything he could to avoid that inferno. Chapter 12. A moment of respite. Izuku was glad to be back teaching his class along with Toya. The news about Hosu had been rampant throughout the class. All of the headlines were shoved in their faces. Hero killer taken down. Olympus Agency saved the day once again. Hephaestus and Prometheus. Next number 1 and 2. Flames blaze in Hosu. They were both done with seeing them. The students weren't concentrating on the lesson at all, so Izuku decided to give in, making the class a free period. That's how both heroes ended up in the middle of a group showing baby photos and telling stories about their childhood. This was Katsuki when he was 2. He was so cute. He decided to show his face in the rice, fed up with our mom trying to feed it to him. Katsuki had to wipe the tears from laughing at the memory. Katsuki was pouting across the table at him. Izuku hadn't failed to notice. Shoto and Toshi slowly scooting closer to his brother on either side. The trio had clearly bonded together after the near-death experience of Hosu. Izuku really couldn't say anything about that though. He and Toya had been getting closer to themselves in Keigo. Their The Icarus was within touching distance of the sun, and he wasn't falling because of it. I have one here from a time just after the explosion manifested, where he accidentally blew up a pie. He was covered in cream. The room was covered in it. Our mom was not happy, but she understood. Izuku smiled. Hey! Izuku, what about the time you were so sick you coughed so hard it activated your Quirk, blasting a hole through the floor? Katsuki had a smirk on his face as he finished. Izuku almost wanted to jump across to strangle Katsuki. He didn't want to think about that again. I got you with that one, Izuku. Toya was chuckling under his breath. Well, Izuku had something for him too. We tried doing camping once, and you almost started a forest fire with your Quirk. That's the last time we did that. Izuku shot back at his boyfriend. As you said to him, Toya, he got you with that one. Shoto deadpanned. Izuku was slowly realizing that this had turned into a match of who could outdo the others with their embarrassing stories. You got your tongue stuck to a pole with your ice. There's nothing for you to talk about here. Toya was almost glaring at his brother for using his own words against him. It had developed into the four of them arguing amongst each other until one of the other students interrupted them. Izuku-sensei, what was your time in UA like? Well, Izuku had to think about that for a second. He loved his time in UA, and he got to go through it all with Toya by his side, even meeting amazing friends like Keigo and Rumi along the way. It was really fun, an integral part of me getting where I am today. Aizawa had just started picking up teaching when Toya and I started here. We had no villain attacks like any of you had to deal with. It felt like we had to improve before getting thrown into the deep end. Izuku couldn't help the warmth filling his chest at the happy memories. Yeah, we were really good friends before UA. So all of the spars and events, like the sports festival, were highly competitive between the two of us. Hawks won the first year's sports fest, beating Rumi in the final. Neither of us made it there since we had already knocked each other out of the tournament in an earlier round. Izuku remembered that fight vividly. It had ended and both of them ruled out of the next round of the tournament. Keigo and Rumi were both advanced from the other match straight into the final. Wait, did either of you win the sports fest? Kirishima asked them. Was someone aspiring to attend UA? Did you watch them? Katsuki was facing the redhead as the question left his lips. Izuku knew his brother had watched them, all three of them, to support him and his brother win. Izuku had won the second-year sports fest, while Toya had gone to win the third-year one. Yes, we both did. Toya smirked at them. We hope to see 2 more of you triumph in the next 2 years as well. The bell rang for class to end. Izuku was content with that lesson being solely relaxation time for the students. Leaning back into the smaller frame of his boyfriend, he let out a sigh of relief as the arm circled around him. I heard Katsuki, Shoto, and Hitoshi are a proper relationship now. Izuku spoke after a minute of silence. They are? I didn't think they'd got that far just yet. I heard from Manuel that they seemingly confessed to each other in the hospital room after the hero killer incident. They did almost die together. Izuku groaned out as he stood up, walking around behind Toya's chair to pull him up. Interesting. I've noticed we both have an interest in certain someone else too. Toya's flushing at a slight shade of red. What do you say, Toya? Should we let our Icarus capture his son? Yeah, I think we should. Izuku and Toya couldn't wait to ask him. Everything was back on track now. The students were safe, happy, and relaxed. They were having a great time together as boyfriends with the possibility of adding a third, and their brothers were in a loving relationship with Hitoshi too. This was how things should be. If only they knew. This was only a moment of respite. Chapter 13. Battled Against Gods. Katsuki was dumbfounded. Shoto and Kirishima had to somehow beat Izuku if they wanted to go to the training camp. He had to admit it. He loved the heterochromatic boy. But Izuku was just too powerful for almost anyone to defeat through sheer force. It wasn't just that when it came to Izuku, his brother was smart, and sometimes people forgot that part. So watching Izuku blast parts of Sho's ice back towards the duo to make them duck out of the way, also blocking line of sight to himself to move around buildings, was amazing to watch as a specter. Shoto couldn't use his fire side at all. Even after Izuku never used that side of his quirk, his brother had a quirk called Volcanic Flame. While the name wouldn't give it away at all, he could use, create, and control explosions in fire. That meant if Shoto used his fire at all, Izuku could easily turn it against him. Katsuki had told him about Izuku's full quirk, and it seemed Shoto had taken it all into consideration. Kirishima, on the other hand, had no knowledge of what his brother was capable of. None of them had seen his full potential, and Katsuki was sure of that. The redhead provided the cover Shoto needed from some of the weaker explosions, until Izuku blasted a much more powerful explosion at him. Kirishima was thrown back into a building with force. Katsuki winced. That didn't look comfortable whatsoever. Izuku clearly seemed to think they were not worth holding back against. Shoto eventually seemed to understand that his chances of winning against Hephaestus in a head-to-head battle was pointless. Using his ice to speed over to Kirishima, threatened the boy, before heading out of the gate. Katsuki saw the state of both his boyfriend and Kirishima as they came back into the observation room. His brother had truly done a number on the duo. Your brother doesn't hold back, Katsuki. Shoto whispered to him. I know. Let's see how much Toya holds back against Hito and I. The answer to that was not at all what they expected. Katsuki had already fought Prometheus in a spar. He knew the man didn't hold back, but this was a different situation altogether. The blue flames were lighting up the city from every angle. Toya was pulling out everything he could. Hitoshi couldn't even get the man to talk for his quirk to work. The heroics teachers knew all of their quirks, so fighting them was even harder than the rest of the teachers. Katsuki got forced into fighting the man close range. Katsuki was usually alright with that fact, unless it was against his brother or Toya. Prometheus hit hard, the improved armor on his costume softening them enough that they didn't break any bones like the last time. The hit still fucking hurt though. Throwing an explosion at Toya, the man was hurtled backwards a few feet. Katsuki had no time to catch his breath before Toya was back on him. Hitoshi entered the battle quickly after using his capture weapon to tangle limbs of the hero. Their strategy looked to be wrong. They were slowly backing Toya away from them and further towards the gate so they could make a run for it. A blow to the back of his knee had him collapsing down onto his other one, throbbing in sharp bursts of agony. Flames were lighting up the street once more, Hitoshi jumping back to avoid being burnt by the man. Hito, do you ever have a voice changer with you? Katsuki smirked evilly. He had a plan, and if it worked, then he would be holding it over Toya for as long as he could. Yeah, why? Hitoshi was looking at him with a mildly confused expression on his face. You used to sound like Hawks. You have his voice in there, don't you? Katsuki needed his other boyfriend to have the winged hero's voice for this one to work the way he wanted. I do. Hitoshi smirked along with him. They were both on the same page for what they needed to do. Rushing back out directly in front of Prometheus, Katsuki started blasting explosions at the advancing hero. He was waiting for Hitoshi to call out to the man for their cue to make a break for the gate. Hey, Toya? Yes, that was Hawks' voice. You and Izuku should totally become Izuku Takumi and Toya Takumi. The choked off coughing sound that the whitehead let out was all that Hitoshi needed to latch on to the mind of the hero, not letting his control over the Quirk drop until they had safely reached the outside of the city. Walking back into the observation room, they saw Shoto sitting against a wall with his eyes shut. That was a great idea. Katsuki moved to sit next to him, and Hitoshi on the other side. Those final exams had been hell for the three of them, but they were all proud of making it through them. Katsuki and the others knew that, of course, if Hephaestus and Prometheus wanted them to fail, then they would have. But even with the inside knowledge of the fact that Izuku and Toya still hadn't used the full potential in their abilities, the two heroes were also clearly proud of the three of them. Katsuki couldn't help the swell of emotion in his chest at the look of pride and fondness on his brother's face as Toya and Izuku looked in their direction upon entering the room. Katsuki, Shoto, and Izuku had just battled against gods and come out victorious. What a feeling it was. Chapter 14. Olympus has fallen. The original training camp plan for the hero courses had been to take them out into a remote area with the wild pussycats and have them stay there to train. Whilst Izuku realized that idea could work well, there was a different approach they could take. After the pitch he and Toya gave, there was no way they could deny it. Olympus had both the space, living quarters, and facilities to provide the correct training for every single hero course student that came. As the students arrived at the agency, Izuku couldn't help but find it kind of cute the way all of them, with their exceptions of their own interns that had their jaws drop open as they look around the building, that wasn't going to last long. They were going to jump straight into the training. First up, Izuku and Toya had them split into their classes for some joint training. There was some great matchups in the classes. Kirishima versus Tetsu was a great watch, even if it was almost a stalemate between the two boys. Motomo paired up with Hitoshi was also a great match since it forced the blonde to shut the fuck up for a minute. The guy seemed unable to do that at the best of times. The training between classes was going well. The agency was quieter than it normally would be, with it being summer break. A lot of heroes and other stuff were away with some vacation time. Keigo was out on his patrol too. Rumi was with them, overseeing the training. There was no way the villains would think it was a good idea to attack an agency that housed 4 of the top 10 heroes, right? Izuku was about to be proven wrong about that as the alarms of the agency blared all around them. This is bad. Keigo would need to get back from his patrol as soon as possible. Alright, listen up. This is not a drill. These alarms are very real, and all of you have permission to use your quirks to defend yourselves. However, do not put yourself in a position of immediate life or death. Izuku leveled a no-arguing stare at the students as he spoke. Izuku, what are you guys going to do? Katsuki shouted after his brother. We're heroes, Kat. We're going to stop the villains. Izuku smiled over his shoulder at Katsuki. Hephaestus and Prometheus were running towards the lobby area of the agency. The front of the building decayed away. The front of the building decayed away by the one and only Shigaraki. There were 3 or 4 other villains behind the man: a blonde girl, some guy in full black bodysuit, a lizard, and an escaped convict from Tartarus. As you can see, heroes, I have backup with me this time. The unnerving itching of his neck made Izuku cringe. Wouldn't you say attacking some of the country's best heroes is a mistake? Toya deadpanned from beside him. We would if you were the targets. Shigaraki smirked back at them. Shit. The targets were the kids. Shigaraki would know for sure that taking or harming any of the kids would be the worst case scenario for any hero, especially heroes ranked as highly as they were in the rankings. They needed Keigo to get back, now. It seemed like good luck was on their side, as the winged hero flew through the decayed entrance like a bat out of hell, landing just behind where Izuku and Toya were standing. Kei, go and check on the students. Rumi is still with them. Izuku yelled back towards his friend. I'm on it. Keigo was already off down towards the gyms before he was finished. The end of his reply no more than an echoed shout in the lobby. How about we get to putting you and the villains behind bars once and for all? Toya cracked his knuckles. The battle started in their favor, Hephaestus and Prometheus holding their own against the 5 villains attacking from all angles. But they were getting worn down slowly and surely. As good as their stamina was, they were only human. That meant they could only use their quirks for as long as their bodies let them. Izuku sent another large explosion at the girl, propelling her away from the 2 of them. The heat of Toya's blue flames felt as he fought the relentless wave after wave of villain pressure. The first crack in their defense came as the blonde girl hit Izuku in the shoulder with a knife. That was rendering his left arm's motor functions almost useless. Damn, this is getting dire. Shigaraki hadn't gotten involved in the fight at all either. Hey, Prometheus, let's kick it up a notch. Show these villains what happens when they mess with us. Go on the offense instead. Izuku panted to his boyfriend. Of course, Hephaestus, Toya whispered under his breath. Izuku blasted the biggest explosion he had ever done so far after that. The backlash wasn't going well for his wrists at all. Why not use the most unused part of his quirk? He could take and control Toya's flames, blasting them the same way his explosions would, just without the explosion vibration causing him more damage. Toya let out some intense blue flames that was already causing the villains to back off further and further. Blocking another knife from Toga, Izuku pulled the knife that was already embedded into it out. A bad thing to do, he knew that, throwing it back at the girl, Toya blocking the big bundle of blades strapping together. Fighting them on the offensive had managed to get them a good result of taking the Tartarus escapee down. He wasn't escaping again. It was looking more likely that they would win or push the villains out of the agency. A portal opening in front of Shigaraki put a stop to both attacking heroes. A masked villain holding two very familiar hero students, Toya and Izuku, were held in his grasp. Katsuki and Shadow. Izuku and Toya were stuck. They couldn't move or do anything as their brothers were dragged through the portal. Shigaraki laughed, standing in front of a portal of his own. Well then, heroes, it really looks like Olympus has fallen. Smirking one more time before stepping into his own portal. Izuku felt rage like no other hit his veins. A matching expression crossing the face of his boyfriend. Keigo and Rumi had come into the room, both looking a bit worse off, but clearly angry with an air of readiness to fight around them. "Kei, get everyone ready. We aren't stopping until we get those two back." Izuku's request felt more like a command in that moment. Across town in a bar, Shigaraki had Katsuki and Shoto tied up while he was giving his monologue of success. "Hey, handjob, you know attacking their family is going to lead to you feeling the wrath of gods," Katsuki said as nonchalantly as he could. Shigaraki and the LV had no idea what a big mistake they had just made. The gods were going to be angry. Hephaestus and Prometheus would come down on them with all the power they had at their disposal. The wrath of the gods was coming, and it was heading their way. That was Hephaestus, chapters 11 through 14. I haven't been posting in a while. There's just been a lot going on. And I usually, in the post I made, I got sick, and I usually only record on weekends. But I was able to record the other one that day after I had gotten really sick. My voice was still bad. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but yeah, my voice kind of sucked. Yeah, I feel like I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna be putting some bloopers at the end of this. If you want, you can tell me how you like. I'll probably just be doing them because sometimes I find my bloopers funny. Anyway, have a nice day or night. Have a nice morning, night, or day. I live on the moon. Yeah, okay. Bloopers. As you said to him, Toya. Oh my god.